Okay, what were the earnings?
So net earnings were, I think, a little over 100, close to $200,000. We had some debt that we'd incurred from the irrigation fund, which we were able to pay off. We paid all our payables were paid up as of October 1. I think we net today was a little over $100,000. I think our bank balance was about $100,000 difference. Is that correct?
Over last year at this time?
Yes.
So those are your earnings
After everything,
taxes?
everything was paid off and
All
like,
that, those
yeah.
were actual earnings?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because I assume you have to file a tax report.
It's a little different. I think Chuck could speak to that more than I could, but yeah, it's 501c3.
It's a 501c3. Okay.
I think so.
I don't know.
No, wait a minute.
We don't file because
It's a municipality.
We're a governmental entity. Yeah, we're government, we do not.
You do not pay tax.
We pay sales tax.
Sales tax we have to, yeah.
All right, well, that's great. The other part of that, and I assume that your earnings this year are proceeding, this fiscal year are proceeding fairly well.
Yeah, we're about $100,000 up from last year to date.
All right. And are all of the bonds, which I think have a due date of 2028 final, are they all paid up to date?
Yes, sir. They're paid up to date, and there's actually one year in reserve. And depending on what we do with the putting green and how the rest of the year goes, I recommend to the board that maybe we put another year in reserve so we can get out 2 years early, because John's going to need to do major renovations at some point.
That's kind of where I was trying to understand that whole part of it.
Yes, sir.
And the loan for the bunker renovation is up to date.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, I'm primarily concerned about, do you know how much principal and interest is remaining on the bonds?
It's in the financials.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head. I don't want to.
The remaining,
Something.
1.2 on the golf course. I don't know about this. Which one is this?
On the golf course, no.
We're talking about. Here, hold on.
What's remaining?
yes,
Interest is $397,600, and the debit, the principal would be 1.5, and that's on our portion. Your portion is the one that's assessed is paid off next year.
2023.
Yeah, next year.
Right.
Yep, next year.
Roughly what date is 2020?
Be May 1, 2023. And actually, your assessment will go down by the reserve amount that we have with the trustee, because that gets applied for the last payment. So your assessment amount will go down.
300 something?
Your 325 will go down. It will go down.
That's theirs.
That's this. Yeah, that was for the.
Now, does the golf course itself send a check in for the volunteers? Oh, you send it?
Yeah, our firm takes care of that.
So you pay all the expenses.
We have payables.
Is there any journal vouchering of moving debt around?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're subject to an audit every year,
Right.
third-party audit. So yes, that has to be all recorded.
So when you pay the bond payment, you journal voucher that cost into history?
It's an expense that comes out of their operating. Yep.
And so you journal voucher that every month?
Every time it's
Twice a
paid.
year.
Twice.
Every time it's paid?
Yep.
How often?
Twice a year.
Twice a year.
Twice.
Yep. November 1 and May 1.
Yeah, it's on our financials.
I just wanted to make sure I understood how the money moved from the golf course. All right, that's all I got.
Okay. Jeff, do you have anything else for us?
No, nothing really. Just this thing that I keep getting from these people that tripped on a sign. I kind of sent it to Chuck and Tony. I don't want to say anything per se, and I think Joe, they can handle whatever they need. But I don't know what happened to this.
We've never gotten pictures, we've never gotten...
There's no video, no pictures.
Video, no corroborating
So I'm
information.
not saying anything, you know.
We'll wait until a potential claim shows up, and we'll deal with it at that point.
Okay, great. I just want to make
I
sure.
don't think you should say anything.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know, because honestly, what am I going to say? I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
It happened after hours, and
It's been quite a long time ago, too, at this point.
Last
So,
June.
Yeah. So, a lot of time has elapsed on something like that.
We have no information.
They're just, someone are saying that's fake up.
yeah.
Yeah, so with that, let's just drop that discussion. We have Joe working on it, and we'll deal with it when we have to.
If something more formal shows up rather than an email request.
Yeah,
I have nothing else.
okay.
I would like to make a quick comment. I did get some info on the putting green, the bid. So the cost would be $133,000. The only unknown, the curbing, the new curbing would be another $3,600, and the land bridge on 13 would be $4,200. And there is an unknown cost of what material was buried under there and how much would have to be taken out to our depth. So that's from
Probably
Clark.
$150,000.
Right.
Roughly.
Okay.
My suggestion to the board would be, let's see where we're at April, well, maybe the end of the March meeting.
March meeting, let's see where we are.
See where you're at
March meeting.
financially, and if you want to do it, let's pull the trigger, right? Because it would be a good summer to do it,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
and we can use the chipping range for putting green like we did during,
Yes,
absolutely.
so we do have some place for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when we get something formal, then we can bring it to the next meeting, then we can discuss it in March. Put it in the, so we can look at it and then get some more information. Okay.
I know we got the new water machine, which is great, but it's still making noises and
Yeah, I called TWC, they're coming out to service it again. I don't know, it might be a thing where we need a plumber. I could use Panther Plumbing to come out, because, yeah, Rick's basically retired, so I'm not able to use him anymore. I use Panther to fix the urinal, so, I don't know, like, Lloyd's looked at it, they've looked at it, it's the same issues, but,
it's almost like there's a pressure issue with the water.
right.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know a lot about plumbing, but,
Yeah.
Does it work?
yeah, it works, but like, you put it in there, and it's okay at first, and then by the middle of the day, it's like, ooh, it's moaning, like, ooh, like you're hurting it or something.
It's like it's,
And the water barely trickles out, and it's a brand-new machine. But it was the same issues we had with the machine that was kind of, was done, basically. I'm perplexed by it, so, and so is Lloyd, and so is everybody else.
the guys that put it in, have they been out to look at it?
That's who I gotta call into TWC. They also haven't sent the bill for it yet, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, call them and then call Panther to have them come in. Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay. Okay, the next is the contract that John and Phil Simonson reviewed with regard to the specifications of going out to get bid for outsourcing the common ground landscaping. Chuck, I sent you an email that I had gone through with John on some questions I had, and I was okay with that. Did anybody else have any questions?
I do. You talked about not having an irrigation tech if we outsource. Are you talking about for the golf course only or for everything, irrigation tech? And then we
Just
talk-
having an irrigation tech for the common grounds.
And wouldn't the outsourcing include an irrigation tech? Potentially.
Or we could either, what I was saying is either that or keep an irrigation tech on our payroll here as an employee, and that way we wouldn't have to outsource the irrigation part up.
Right, but if they have an irrigation tech, which we don't have, that might,
Right, but
that might wash.
there's been some issues in the past with that about, like, so like if you have a monthly schedule, right? They're supposed to service the irrigation system monthly, which is typical. Coming in at the beginning of this month and the end of next and saying, hey, I was there once a month.
Right.
So you got a 2-month gap before you're really serviced, Not everybody does that, but so these are just issues we ran into in the past, and just with having to do, they don't do the meters either, so that's the main reason, is doing all the service and all of everybody's meters, is to have that person.
So you prefer us to have one?
I would prefer us to have it, so because you'd just be able to respond so much faster, people's water wouldn't be down for 2 or 3 days for whatever reason, as you see, everybody's having a staffing, and staffing shortage. So if we could possibly have that person on site, that would, I think, be key. And plus, you can kind of factor that in, it'd be cheaper for them, when you redo that contract, hey, we don't need an irrigation service, And that's a big portion, there's usually a decent amount of money.
When we had that, we had a lot of issues when we didn't have irrigation tech.
On site.
There were,
Yeah, I think it's definitely key to have that person on. And I already have, if that's the way we end up going, I already have some plans, on who that person would be, with the current staff.
we had service issues, we had accountability issues.
Right.
We were there, well, John wasn't around, so was he really there? We don't know, and stuff.
Or the whole, we don't do this size pipe, but it's not main line,
Yeah.
there's some verbiage, in the,
I think we're better off having our own.
absolutely.
So with this, so this would be the specifications to be sent out to bid?
We go out to bid.
Okay. Do we have companies that?
Oh, yeah, I've got quite a few out
Yeah,
there. The only question is whether or not they have room in their schedule, because most of them are dealing with staffing issues as well, so.
Well, I would like to have the bid at least sent to Juniper, since they're going to be doing, they're working on it as it is now. I don't know if there's any others that, how we have to do this, Chuck?
And I need to get that cleaned up, don't I? I mean, I want to send them not our
no.
our edited report.
Right.
We'll send them the actual.
Everybody's received a cleaned up version, right? I mean, I'm just accepting the changes in there, so.
Right, have you, they've all, you sent it out? Oh, okay.
I've done all that.
So,
We're going to send it out with no irrigation tech requirements,
okay.
so,
Did you send it out? I don't think I got it.
get that.
I think so.
If not,
Yeah, we'd asked you all to send in any questions or comments you had at the last meeting,
right, and I sent you,
and you sent me an email that you were good with it as it was.
okay.
No, I've actually got a cleaned up version on my computer. I didn't send out a cleaned up version. I think I was waiting on comments and edits, so
Okay.
I do apologize for that.
No problem. Okay, so if you could send that out.
You want me to proceed with bidding it out?
Yeah, I think that was our
Okay,
goal.
that's what we'll do. We'll run the ad. It'll probably run next week. We'll have a mandatory pre-bid, which we'll schedule for here with John, and make sure they're all on the same page. We answer all their questions, and we'll set a bid opening probably for mid-February, mid to late February, be able to tabulate it and probably bring it to you at your March meeting. I think it's going to be a tight squeeze to get it for February. So. It's a fairly small project, so.
Okay, all right, so we're good with that. Next is the potential purchase of the THP building. I think that, I know that, thank you, Darrell. Okay, thank you very much. I know you all got those attachments that we've gotten. Today, I did receive confidential information that only Chuck and Tony and the appraiser and I can see. I was looking through that. We did have the surveyor was here. Chuck is going to have inspections done in the building, so we need to, were you going to do that, or Chuck, to get us some?
I can go through the outline that Tony prepared.
Okay, and this is Lenore Brakefield, she's here for Tony. Tony is at a different...
He's in front of the county commissioners today in Collier County, so the update on the contract is the initial deposit was received by the escrow agent on December 20th. The title commitment was received on January 10th of this year. A surveyor has been retained. That was done on December 27th. And the documents listed in the title commitment were delivered to the surveyor on January 12th, and the field work has been performed and completed. The appraiser has been retained, and as was just discussed, the trade secret documents have been delivered to the appraiser. That was done on January 17th. And the site plans and building plans were delivered on January 17th as well. I don't know if anyone has any questions about the confidential information or not, but that was delivered according to what Florida statute requires, and that information is exempt from public record, so that's why it was delivered in sealed envelopes to Eileen and Chuck. So if anyone has any questions about that or would like the reference to the Florida statute to peruse in your free time, let me know, and I'm happy to give that. And then what Tony asked is, he asked that Eileen and the staff basically authorize him to proceed forward with whatever additional people that he needs to hire to continue on the due diligence as set forth in the contract. So that's what he would like to have, that authorization, just to engage the necessary professionals for inspections, environmental assessments, et cetera, other things that we need for the due diligence time period.
I'd like to make a motion that Tony has the authority to hire the necessary people to continue with the due diligence within the time frame.
I'll second.
Questions relative to it?
Just a moment. Are there any questions, any other comments from the board? Okay.
Who had the second? Phil Hall? Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So then, all those in favor of Tony?
Like that.
Opposed? Okay. You had a question, sir?
Yeah, I have a number of questions. First of all, my biggest concern is, first of all, I wish the thing had never been sold.
So do we.
I think we all do.
I'm sure that and we can talk about that just for a second too, but my thing is that this is like 6.7 million. The homeowners association, the other one, is proposing another 4 million roughly in terms of this building thing. So there's a total of about 11 to 12 million dollars total debt, which are going to be put on the homeowners in one form or another, whether it's, in fees or in taxes, in terms of some way, somehow. That's concerning. So that, that's $11,000, $12,000 per homeowner. And quite frankly, I don't have any interest in that. I'm not saying I'm against purchasing the building, although I have numerous concerns of that whole thing. First of all, and I'm referencing an article that was written in the news press a number of years ago in regards to this. And I don't want to relive all of the history part of it, but U.S. Homes had put out $9.6 million in bonds back at that time. And supposedly, the homeowners weren't going to have to pay for it. I know I was told that at purchase. You don't have to worry about that whole thing. And the National Golf Foundation said that the golf course could meet debt requirements of $900,000 a year, which is a heck of a lot more than even your earnings today in terms of that thing. The development district was turned over to this group, I think, in 2004.
Okay,
correct?
U.S. Homes did have the development district from the get-go.
Right.
There were not residents on the board until December of '04.
Okay.
And the purchase of that building occurred in November of '04. So it was the board that was in place at the time of the sale of that building to the current owners were all U.S. Home representatives.
Okay, there was nobody in this board
Because when...
was associated with that
No,
sale.
because when any development is sold or being built, based on the number of homes being sold is when they can put homeowners on the board. So that building was purchased by the current owners with the CDD board members being all U.S. Home
US
Pretty sure that was 03.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. Well,
Whatever. It's either 03 or
Yeah, it was all of it. And supposedly, at that point in time, we had an informal agreement that U.S. Homes would subsidize any debt shortfall from the golf.
And they did for
At
several
least that's what the newspaper article.
They did for several years until the market
Until
crashed.
2007, and then they said no. And then the board got into a huge thing
Right.
about whether they could try to recover that money by suing them or whatever.
Right, we went through all that.
And then from 2007, I assume, to 2010, the bonds that existed at that time, CDD made no payments on those bonds, zero, right?
Yeah, rough. I mean,
Okay.
I don't
And the
think we
reason
paid a
was
dime.
because the golf course couldn't afford it?
Yeah, we didn't have the money to pay.
We didn't have the money to pay.
Even though probably at that time, I mean, play has always been pretty decent.
The golf course never made $900,000.
So I understand
was
that, they just
completely
said they didn't make
unrealistic.
it 200,000 this last year. So this was obviously a faulty story. I guess, my question is, why did we only get an informal agreement at that point in time? And why didn't, we get an actual agreement that they would subsidize?
The bonds.
Or sue them. Why, I know our legal counsel said we would not sue or shouldn't sue them. I don't know why that was.
Well-
We couldn't show loss.
Couldn't show what?
Couldn't show loss.
Had to show damage, yeah, you have to have
Couldn't
cause.
show a loss.
You mean that the golf course could
We
fund?
couldn't show that them not paying it, they paid it. How could we sue them for paying something they weren't liable to pay for?
Aren't they the ones that took out the revenue bonds?
The revenue bonds, honestly, should have never been issued. They were issued by guarantee. We're really going down a rat hole here.
Well,
But those bonds
we
were,
go down this rabbit hole.
well, it's too late. It doesn't matter. We could talk about this for hours.
I understand that.
But it doesn't really
All
matter.
right, okay.
But,
Well, in my opinion, it does.
well, no, it mattered. It mattered. Well, when we were all living here in 2003 and 2004, we should have had our head out of our you-know-whats
Right.
and on top of this.
I
But now,
understand
it's
that.
2022.
And the homeowners got stuck with it. I
Yeah.
got it, too bad.
I mean, at the end of the
You know,
day-
as the guy said here, housing market's down, we can't afford it anymore, goodbye and good luck, rights was said. So we were stuck with it. I got all of that.
Yeah, I mean, they walked away in '07. Actually, Raymond Rodriguez and I ran in 2004, 3 residents were on the board.
Right.
So for '04 and '05, there were still 2 representatives
Right.
of U.S. Homes on this board. In '06, Raymond Rodriguez and myself, Phil, a couple other people in the neighborhood ran for the 2 seats that were open. One of the things that Raymond and myself ran on was we were going to try to get in writing from U.S. Homes that they would continue to subsidize us
Right.
at the end of the day. They, of course, never agreed to sign that. They had no legal obligation to sign it.
Sure. So they just lied to us, and it couldn't have been fraud, could it? So, but the whole thing was then the decision was made to sell. In what year was the decision made to sell this building?
03, 04.
That building?
No, the building we're in, right? I mean,
No, not this.
No,
The clubhouse,
The
the golf
clubhouse.
clubhouse.
the golf clubhouse,
Right.
okay. And, I'm sorry, and the golf and Duffy's.
Right.
It's in the parking lot.
That decision was made in, who
It
sold
was
it?
2003. I think that was 2003.
So that was all
U.S.
U.S.
Homes.
Homes had to say. How much was it sold for at that point in time? And what was done with the money from that sale?
it went to U.S. Homes.
You could look it up on LEAP, I guess.
Did they pay down, they said they had $9.6 million of revenue bonds that they had issued. Did they pay down the $9.6 million with that money? And then whatever the remainder was that came to the CDD to pay?
Their claim was a $9.6 million bond did not go to finance that building. That building was financed through them, and they had the right to sell it. That's their legal stand on, that's how they did it.
So it was a completely separate transaction.
sir.
That's what you're saying in that. But we should know what the sale price was.
It should be on LEAP.
That's public.
Yeah, you can go on lipa.org and then,
Okay. I just wondered if
I don't-
anybody here knew what it was.
I can maybe look it up.
Relevant to this purchase myself.
I think it was around $3 million.
I thought
I
it was
think.
too, but
I think.
I don't know for sure, so, in terms of that. All right. Next kind of area of questions here. What all of a sudden was the motivation to, did we initiate this possible purchase?
Yes, we did.
Who in the board initiated the purchase?
The board went to the current owner and asked if they were interested in selling.
He didn't come to you.
And we have discussed it with this owner. The deal is that,
I know who the owner is.
Okay.
He lives next door.
okay, that property could be sold to anyone. That is zoned for commercial and food services. We could end up with a Burger King up in front of our development, we could end up with a Walgreens. The bottom line is that we would like to have control of all of our property, and that's why we pursued this. You also, and just, I mean, these are all speculations. Yes, we do have a lease for the pro shop in perpetuity. Does not mean that building. We could, because if somebody else buys that, they just have to give us an area for a pro shop. Okay? So you could have a McDonald's there and a trailer over here with, okay? They could also limit the amount of parking spaces, whatever the new owner wanted to do. Okay? So we felt that it was in the best interest of the golf course and the community not to have,
But you went to him.
we, in a discussion.
So I assume you've gone to him for years and years.
Well, I mean, as I said, I got elected on this board in 2006, so pretty much since I've been on this board, there has been discussion of potentially buying that building. We were never in a good position financially to,
Even think
we could
about
talk about it, but, you know, it was just, we couldn't get, especially because, as we said, we didn't pay our debt for 3 years,
Right,
so
exactly.
we didn't have a very good credit rating.
Exactly.
But we've cleaned that up, things look a lot
So you
better.
think you could go out
We're kind of in
and
a
loan for
We know we
6.7
can,
million.
yes.
So that's what it comes to. Okay, this is just because I don't know, but does the board have the authorization to enter into this contract, or do the homeowners have to approve it?
The board has the final say.
The board has the final say to enter into any contract? In other words, this next month, could you go over and put in a bid on Miramar?
In theory.
Sure we could.
You could? And you are, in terms of the bylaws and all that, you can enter into any financial contract that you would like to, at any amount of dollars?
I don't know if I would say any.
I mean,
Well,
far as we know.
I'm not talking about the bylaws. You're saying you have, the board has the authority to enter into any kind of a contract like this without the approval of the homeowners?
yes.
Pretty much.
Okay.
We were elected officials
Uh-huh.
for that. That's why we're doing this. And again, I mean, I'm looking at the other board members with me. We are doing this to benefit the community.
Well, I understand.
We are not.
I said I'm not agreeing.
Okay.
I think the only thing we couldn't do is, I don't think we could sell the golf course.
What's that?
I don't
Yeah,
think
we
we could.
can't sell the golf
We couldn't
course.
sell the golf course. So I'm just going, when you're saying any financial transaction, we can't sell the golf course. I'm sure that, but I
Okay,
would say.
but you
pretty
could
much-
buy anything you like. Since this was an independent facility you're talking about here for 6.7 million, you could theoretically, I'm not saying you'd do it, but you could theoretically go over and make a $50 million offer on Miramar Chase.
Yeah, I think there's, Chuck, I know you're not, I'm not a lawyer, I know Chuck, I've read the
I mean,
statute. I
you-
think there's some stipulations on it, the purchase
Public
has to
benefit.
prove that it benefits.
Public benefit.
It benefits the community and the district. You know, we couldn't just go buy something just to buy something, but it has to have some material benefit to the district itself, which we are the district,
Okay.
Stony Brook, and we are, all us residents, we are part of the district.
So-
So there has to be, I'm positive, there's some
Guidelines.
stipulations and guidelines. We just couldn't go buy.
I'm just surprised that the
Yeah.
homeowners really have to.
I mean, we couldn't go buy
Yeah, we're in
a
essence
company or
raising
something
our-
just because it makes money.
Well, it's very similar to your cities, village, counties. that doesn't go out to referendum when they go buy a piece of property on behalf of the county for some sort of a use and benefit to their taxpayers. This operates very much the same way.
Okay. So you can raise the taxes as much as you want.
It's no different than the federal government raising our taxes.
That's
We're
right.
elected
You're the
officials.
representative, so
That's
therefore
right.
you have the ability.
Not that we're going to do that.
Right, I understand. The homeowners
But that
also,
you're right.
maybe I'm wrong on this, but also would have the ability to dissolve the CDD.
Well, you're going to have to find another public entity to park all of the assets that the
Right.
CDD owns.
That's
And
right.
they can't go private to the HOA. They'd have to go to the village or the county, who would probably set up a special taxing unit under their umbrella.
Exactly.
And the benefit is local, so you'd have that on your property tax bill still, and you just wouldn't have 5 members of the community representing you. You'd have 1 regional commissioner representing you, so.
Yeah. The purchase price is $6.7 million. No, and again, we're buying at the top end of the market, okay, the price. If we
We're in-
sold it for
we're in the-
3,
we're in the
we're
midst-
buying at 6.7.
We're in the midst of doing an appraisal, if that's
Yeah,
where
I
you're headed,
understand.
so.
I guarantee in this day and age, the appraisals are not a problem. I guarantee. I mean, when I see houses across from me going for $800,000 and probably sold in here for 300 and something, I doubt it. I don't think you'll have an appraisal problem. Even certainly if you pick your appraiser, how was the 6.7 million? Was that a negotiation?
That was the offer from the current landlord, the current owner.
Did you counter the offer?
There was no opportunity to
Yeah,
count.
this is what they asked for, and
You couldn't counter?
no.
We
It
don't
was,
even have an appraisal yet to even counter with it.
Right.
We'd just be pulling a number out of
That
our,
happens all the time in the
Right.
purchase of an asset. You don't have to have an appraisal.
these are.
Well, they don't have to sell it either.
personally, I'd like to have an appraisal so I have an idea what it's worth. I do not deal in commercial property. I have no idea. You can tell me it's worth $1 million. I think it's probably worth more, but
So
I don't have anything to base my decision on, so I'm hoping that I get an
So
appraisal.
you're saying if you would reject the bid if it didn't appraise at 6.7 million?
No, I'm not saying that. I would, if it appraises, I have not set a number in my head, but I would think if it appraises at a number close to that, I think we have to judge as a community, and I said this the other night at the HOA, we have to decide what is it worth as a community to
Right.
control that. So if it appraises at 5 million, is it worth another 1.75 for us to actually own that land and forever be able to dictate what's on it? I don't know. That's kind of discussions that
Yeah,
hopefully
and as a
we'll have as
homeowner, I
as a
have-
community.
I have the thing, like I was talking about originally, I'm concerned about the total debt that's being incurred.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Because that'll come back directly to me.
Right.
Okay? Not just.
You're going to incur debt either way. If somebody else buys that property, we're going to have to spend $3 or $4 million to reroute, build a whole nother golf shop. If
Yeah.
Walgreens were to come in there and tear it all down, we would then have to figure out
We'd be
how to
scrambling.
we would be scrambling.
We'd be scrambling to try to figure out a way. We'd have to reroute poles, we'd have to build a parking lot, we'd have to remove,
You have
replace the
a
gate.
current lease for. how
7
much
more
longer?
years.
How much?
7 more years, the pro shop.
On the entire building?
On our
No.
pro
Portions.
shop, we have 7 years. The current restaurant has a 7-year lease as
Do
well.
you have any options on the current lease to renew
Yes.
for a higher amount of money, I would assume? And how many options do we have?
I'd have to go back and look at the lease. I don't really know.
Was it originally a 20-year lease?
You talking about the golf shop?
The pro shop. Honestly, I
10
don't
years.
know. I'd have to go back to look at the lease.
It's 10 years. It's 10
It's a
years.
10-year renewals.
It's a 10-year renewal, so we have approximately 17 or 18 years on it. Okay. And from what I read in
We have
terms
7, but then at
We
the
have
end of the
7 years remaining on this current lease.
so, and again, I'm not a finance person, I was an operations guy for many a day. Do we run some sort of a discounted cash flow in reference to the entire transaction, $6.7 million versus the the current lease
Okay,
and their
that's-
ability to
That's
to
currently...
renew it.
That's currently the documentation that we're getting, that, we just started this in December, so
I
we're
understand.
6 weeks into it. So a lot of the questions you're asking, until we see all the documentation and until we can discuss information other than trade secrets, I really can't divulge any of that at this point because I don't know. So I have to look at all that, and that will all be looked into with the
I hear you, and you've already stated in terms that you have the ultimate authority and not the homeowners here. Based on the history of this whole thing, you could understand perhaps why I'm a little bit
I think a lot
of a doubter. I mean, I'm the one that's paid, for all of these previous transactions. Whether U.S. Homes is responsible for screwing us or whatever, maybe the original running of the golf course, which I still can't figure out how much money it made back in those days. This guy's been able to make it probably on as many rounds, if maybe less rounds than were actually done back in those days. I don't know. So I'm just a little bit worried about the due diligence that may be done, by this board. I see the opportunity. I never wanted to sell it. I would have never sold it. I guess we couldn't get bonds for $9.6 million back in those days.
And again, at that point-
That's why we had to sell it.
Again, at that point in time, the residents did not have a say on the board. They were all U.S.
I
Homes
understand.
representatives. So at that point in time, even if we could have gotten the bond, it wasn't on the residents at that
Right.
point, or a resident voice, unfortunately.
But
So-
the residents had a vote, I think they did, I thought I remember, on the bonds that were ultimately the ones that are still currently in place.
No, that was approved by the judge, that we had the right to...
When you went for bankruptcy?
Yes, and that was not a community vote. That was the board